So we'll just welcome our last speaker to the stage, Takumi Kodama, and his talk, Convolutional Neural Network Architecture and Input Volume Matrix Design for ERP Classification in a Tactile P300-based brain-computer interface.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Takumi Kodama from University of Tsukuba, Japan. So today I will present my research project. The title of which is Convolutional Neural Network Architecture and Input Volume Matrix Design for ERP Classifications in a Tactile P300 brain computer interface. First of all, let me introduce about the BCI. The BCI stands for the brain-computer interface, which can exploit user intentions only using human brain responses. So please look at this figure. These three diagrams are showing the main functions of the brain-computer interface. At first, the signal processing section receives the human brain waves and conducts signal processing like cancelling a noise. Then those signals are converted to the feature vectors in the feature extraction section. Then finally, those generated feature vectors are classified with the machine learning algorithms in the classification section. After the calculation, the BCI can send commands to any applications like human and robots or wheelchairs or language input system. Then based on the decision in the classification section, machine learning algorithms. Then that application will send feedback to the BCI users. So this closed loop is the main feature of the brain-computer interface. With this closed loop, the BCI users can control these applications without saying something or without moving his muscles. Okay, there are many BCI paradigms in this study, but we have applied the Tactile P300-based brain-computer interface for our project. The paradigm can predict user intentions intentions by decoding the P300 responses. This one. The reason why we have applied the paradigm is that the strong P300 response peak that could be aroused by the vibration stimuli rather than the visual or auditory stimuli. This is our approach, the BCI which we are developing. We call it as a FBBCI, which stands for the Full Body Tactile P300-based BCI. We apply the 6 vibro-tactile vibration stimulus to the BCI users during the experiment to stimulate. This is the BCI user who using this BCI. We apply these 6 big tactile exciters on the mattress to stimulate the BCI users' both hands and shoulders and hips and both legs. So with this BCI, the user can take experiment just with his body laying down. So it could be applicable to the ALS patients or bedridden patients. We actually conducted experiment, online EEG experiment with the 10 BCI users, and calculated the classification accuracies that fits our correct rate criteria of the BCI study. We have applied the SWLDA and linear SPM and non-linear SPM for the classification, and calculation result was around 60% correct result. We actually have several problems in here. The first problem is classification accuracy. 60% were not actually enough for the practical application for the BCI, the actual users. Another problem is the model so far that requires the user-specific classifier models for each user. For instance, if I use this BCI, I need to take our experiment just for the training. This is actually not convenient. So to solve the problems, I set the research purpose for this project. First is to confirm the effectiveness of the FPBCI modality, reconfirm the effectiveness of the modality by improving the stimulus pattern classification accuracies. Another purpose is to achieve a non-personal training ERP classification using a neural network model. So this is our method for this project. We apply the CNN, which stands for the Convolutional Neural Networks for the ERP classifications in the BCI study. The CNN is often used in the image recognition task or computer vision tasks. Generally, the picture, the input volume is input to the networks. We apply the input volume, and the pixel elements are convolved with the filters in the layers. At the final layers, at the output of the final layers, the elements, the activation map elements are flattened and input to the neural networks. In this case, the multi-layer perceptron. We need to consider to apply the CNN classifier for the ERP classification. There are just 2 points. The first, to design the input volume, then the network architecture. First of all, I will explain about how to design the input volumes. So actually, we transform these ERP intervals to the one-dimensional feature vectors. We acquire the brainwave responses. We call it as our ERP intervals, which is just the duration after giving the stimulus, vibration stimulus to the users between 800 milliseconds. Then these brainwaves are converted to the one-dimensional feature vectors with their potentials, with those value of the EEG, the potentials. So as you can see, in this example, the P300 response can be confirmed around the central area. Then in the feature vectors, those potential values are copied. Those potential values are copied to the feature vector, so we can confirm the strong potentials in the middle of this example. Then we transform those one-dimensional feature vectors to the two-dimensional feature, the input volumes. Since the length of this feature, the feature vector was 400, we could create 20 by 20 squared matrices by putting the elements from the left upper side to the right bottom side. For instance, in the first column that contains the elements number 1 to the number 20. On the second column, the elements number 21 to the 40 is put to create squared matrices. And actually, this small input volume is generated just from the one electrode. Since we have attached 8 electrodes to record the EEG signals, we could create more bigger input volumes, thereby concatenating the input volume which acquired in each electrode. And we also put the mean value of all the EEG electrodes on the center of the grid. So we could create 60 by 60 input volumes to input to the architecture. Then we consider the CNN architecture to calculation. Actually, we have the model that we have implemented is based on the LeNet, which is a very common algorithm in the CNN study. And the LeNet has 2 convolution layers and 2 pooling layers. This is actually the input volume, 60 by 60, like I explained. Then these input volumes will resize through the convolutional layers and pooling layers to the activation maps. Then these activation maps will be flattened again to input to the multi-layer perceptron. We implemented multi-layer perceptron like this. The input layer is 7,200, which is a flattened vectors from the final activation maps. Then we set the output layer for the 2 elements. sorry, this is an old slide. We actually, in addition to apply the CNN, the classifier for the ERP classifications, we also try to achieve the non-personal trainings for the calculation. For instance, the user number one, the ERP classification is conducted by the classifier model, which trained by the other users. In other examples, the user number 10's ERP signals are classified with the classifier model, which trained by user number 1 to 10. Which means actually that we implemented like leave one out cross validation between each users. So the new user does not require doesn't require the training experiment at all. So this is areas we're gonna move to the result of the confusion matrix of the pure the probability from the CNN classifiers. We actually brought the two different types of the ERP signals. The first signal is a non-average ERP signals. We just put the result of the brainwave responses to the classifiers. Another result is a moving average ERP. We average the ERP signals by adding it and average it. Except the non-target cases in the non-average ERP signals, we could acquire around 100% as for the probabilities. So this is a classification accuracy, which is different from the result of the probability. This is a BCI correct rate in my FPBCI. So this means the correct rate of the attached command to the BCI users. Each row are showing the user numbers, where since we conducted 10 experiment with the 10 subjects, and the bottom row is showing the average result of the 10 users. So we could acquire 79% for the non-average ERP and 100% for the moving average ERP signals. So let me conclude my research project. The FPBCI classification accuracy was dramatically improved from the 60% with the CNN classifier model. We could acquire around 80% for the non-average ERP intervals and 100% for the average ERP intervals. So we could reconfirm the potential validity of the FPBCI, and we also achieve a non-personal training ERP classifications. From now on, in the future study, to implement this proposed methods for the online environment, since this experiment is conducted in the offline, just calculation, it would be the primary task for the future. Thanks for the listening. Would you have any questions or comments?